What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Kelly Mountain Woodworks. In today's video, I'm going to be discussing the design process that I go through when I'm designing a custom epoxy inlay. A gentleman at work the other day came up to me and was wanting a cutting board with a epoxy inlay customized for his wife who likes sunflowers. So we were going back and forth with some different design ideas, and we found an image on Google Images of a sunflower with a name in it. He wanted it personalized with their name and sunflowers, and he gave me a lot of creative liberty as far as using my own design process to come up with the design. He approved of the design. I'm going to go back over those steps now and show you guys exactly what I do. So we're just on Google right now, and we're going to look for sunflower SVGs. Now, this particular image that I found is not actually an SVG, but it worked really well. So this is the image that he approved the design on. So we're just going to save this to our desktop. I've actually already saved it. You guys know how to save stuff to your computer. So that's where this little segment of the video is going to end. We found a image that we like on Google Images. We saved it to our computer. In the next segment, I'm going to pick up and talk about how we're going to convert this image that we have picked out on Google Images into an SVG using Inkscape. Alright, so now that we have our image uploaded into Inkscape, what we are going to do is we're going to hit Path. We're going to select Trace Bitmap. What I found worked best on this is using the brightness cutoff. We are going to select Remove Background, and we don't need this many scans, so we're going to kind of bump this down a little bit. We'll hit Update. Well, you got to make sure it's selected, and then we're going to hit Update. It'll give you a little preview right here. I've already gone through this process, so I've already found that this actually worked really well. You can select these different options from the Trace Bitmap menu, and you can view a preview over here, or you can go ahead and just hit OK, and you can move it around and decide if it's going to work for you or not. This works for us, so we're going to select the original, hit delete. We're going to move this back over into the middle. We'll get rid of this little window over here, and then we're just going to save this onto the computer. Once this is saved onto the computer, then we'll go over to Carbide Create where we'll pull it in. But right now this is an SVG. Alright, now that we're over here in Carbide Create, we have already selected the dimensions for the cutting board that we're making. It's going to be 18.5 by 12.25. And we're going to go to Import, and we will go select the SVG that we just made from the menu. Alright, now that we have our SVG pulled into Carbide Create, we will zoom in a little bit. While we have everything selected right here, we're going to go ahead and increase the size. And we're going to move it over here where we want our design. That looks like it's going to be a pretty good size. So we don't want it to say your text here, so we're going to get rid of all of that. We're going to create a text box. We're going to put the customer's last name in. And since I've already done this design, I kind of already know the fonts and what we're going to do. And one of the things that I have already tested that I really like the looks of is with the particular font and the carve that we're going after, this actually looks better all caps. So we're going to leave this all caps. The font that I use for most all of my custom inlays, especially for V carving stuff, is called Monotype Corsiva. So we're just going to find that in the drop down menu, select it, and then we will bring it over and drop it right there. And that is pretty much it. we are going to, because of the Inkscape and the way that it gets converted, there are some of these little nodes that need to be deleted. So we're going to clean this up some and get rid of some of these little bubbles that are not going to matter in the final cut. So we're going to get rid of those. Looks like there's one right there. Get rid of that. So we want to keep this design as close to sunflowerish looking as possible. And what we are going to do for the toolpath, we are going to select all of these inside nodes, and all of these are going to be separate from the outside line. So we're going to select these. You just hit, it's a lot easier if you zoom in, but we're going to select all of these, and you just hold shift down. I messed up. You just hold shift down and keep selecting each of these lines. We're going to select all of those, and since we have all of these selected right now, we're going to go ahead and make those a group, and then we are going to come down here and do the same thing on the bottom. Just hold down shift and then select all of these inside circles, not really circles, these inside paths that we're going to be cutting. So what our idea right here is all of these are going to get pocket toolpaths. Since we have all these selected on the bottom now, we're going to go ahead and group those. And now that we have those two groups, we can select this bottom group, hit shift, select the top group, and then make one group. That way when we select one, they all light up orange. Now, the idea here, like I was mentioning earlier, is we're going to remove all of this material. These are going to be pockets. That's why you want to keep these separate from these lines. So the outside lines, we're going to select that, hit shift, and then select the one on the bottom. And we're going to turn those into a group. That way when we select one, they all light up orange. Now we have two different groups. We actually have three if you count the letters. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go over to toolpaths. Actually, we're going to stay over here in design. We're going to select all of the inside nodes. We're going to go to toolpath, contour. Depending on how big you make this, it's going to depend on the bit. I'm not going to go over the bit. The bit that I used for this is actually a 16th. But I'm just doing this to explain that you want these to be pockets. So we're going to select pocket. That way it's going to remove all of this material in here. And then for the outside line portion, we are going to actually do no offset for that toolpath. And then the name, we're actually going to do a V-carve. The reason I'm not going into great detail on the toolpaths is because unless you're doing this specific design, you're not going to be using the same toolpaths. So you just do the toolpath that is going to look the best for the design that you chose, and you can come down here and hit the show simulation and you'll see what the final product is going to look like. That's how I am achieving the design that we're going after for this particular design on this cutting board. So in the later part of the video, I'll actually show you and put some clips of cutting this out, as well as I wanted to go ahead and throw this into this video while I'm actually doing this, just to give another added tip and one of the tricks that I've learned over the years of making cutting boards. After you get it sanded up to 220, what I like to do is go ahead and spritz it with some water, let it completely dry. That's going to raise the grain to the surface, and because this has an epoxy inlay in it, I'm going to go ahead and sand it all the way up to 320 after I let the grain raise. So sand it all the way up to 220, spritz it with water, let the grain come up, and then go back over the whole thing with 320. And that's going to get it super smooth and prevent the grain from raising when the customer gives it its first wash. So we're going to go ahead and do that now.